Okay, class, lecture number 24. We're moving right along. We only have 26 lectures, and actually the Monday, Wednesday people have fewer than that. All right, the last time we were together, we talked about the Renaissance. I hope you appreciate this period of time. It's one of my favorites. I've had to learn to enjoy it, and I enjoy it very much. The next section we go into with Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation is actually my favorite section in the course here. But you got familiar with the Italian Peninsula. I told you why the Renaissance developed there, you know. You should be comfortable with that. We also talked about humanism. Hope you recognize that part. The father of the Renaissance humanist, if you will, was that Francisco Petrarca, or Francis Petrarch, and that kind of rekindled my interest, you know, in going back and reading some of the Petrarchan sonnets. I like those very much. And we talked about Lorenzo Valla with notes on the New Testament here. And we'll add a little bit to that later in the class period. Niccolo Machiavelli. All right, that was always an interesting person to talk about. Discourses on Livy. Also, how to be a true leader here with his book, which was called The Prince. We talked about Baldassare Castiglione, Book of the Courtier, how to be a proper gentleman here, a guidebook for that. We went into some of the authors here, Giotto Reborn, and I meant artists, I didn't say, I said authors here, but Giotto Reborn, better known as Masaccio. And we talked about Sandro Botticelli with The Birth of Venice. And we closed out the class period here going over a person by the name of Leonardo da Vinci here. He developed a flying machine, and in fact, it's a wonder the man didn't kill himself in that flying machine. But if you go to Florence today, you can actually see the hills where he did attempt to make a flight here. All right, I want to go into our documents camera here, and I promised you the other day that I would show you what the Louvre appeared as. Oops, and I didn't mean to go that direction here, folks. I'm going to keep it back here. And we'll look carefully at this. This is in Paris, France, by the way, and if you see this little structure, it looks like a pyramid. That's the entranceway into the Louvre. In the background there, you see the Royal Palace. This was a time in which that was used before Louis XIV, Louis XV, Louis XVI. Actually, Louis XVI did go back to this palace here, and the Tuileries, if you will. But that's all next semester here. And I was looking at the review of one of my lectures the other day, and I told myself, I said, why are you shaking so much? And I thought, you know, I never really noticed that with myself. And then I realized, you know, that when I hold the photograph here, and particularly if I touch my desk, it makes the camera vibrate, and it makes it look like I'm shaking, trembling, if you will. Or at least that's what I'm telling myself anyway. All right, now we're going to go into some of the artists as we continue through this. Let me get my light adjusted properly here, folks. And in the High Renaissance, we found a group of artists, and they belong to the Venetian school. That means that they are from Venetia, which is present over on the eastern side of the Italian Peninsula. And some of the better known ones there, Bellini, Giorgione, Titian. Just got one photograph to show you here. This is Pope Paul III. This is by Titian. And that's really all I'm going to say about him. And we'll talk about some of these other individuals. I hope this doesn't bore you. It's kind of interesting, you know, if you really get into this. And one of the amazing artists that came from this period of time, actually was acquainted with the next guy we're going to be talking about, Michelangelo. It was a person by the name of Raphael. Today, if you visit the Vatican Museum, the entranceway will be, over the entranceway will be a bust, you know, a statue of the head of Raphael and also Michelangelo. But he's responsible for the School of Athens. And I'll show you what the School of Athens looks like. And let me get my book here. And here it is. This is also in your textbook, too. And if you're looking in your textbook, it's on page 117. It's a great piece of work here by Raphael. And let's see here. For Raphael, if I can find him here, he has painted into the picture right here. He painted himself into the picture. If we go to this area here, we can see Plato. Here's Aristotle. Here's Diogenes is present here. And if we go back over here, this is Euclid. That is Euclid there. All right, so anyway, that is known as the School of Rome. I'll share a few other likenesses here with you of Raphael. And let me get myself together here. And this is referred to as the Transfiguration. It's a large portrait. When you look at it, you just think that it's probably just a regular 2 foot by 2 foot painting here. But I'm telling you, folks, if you go inside the Vatican Museum, this transfiguration in the Raphael room, it covers an entire wall, and I'm talking about it's probably about 20 feet by 20 feet. It's just magnificent. That's known as the transfiguration. All right, let's see what else we have here. Here's some likenesses here from Raphael, and this is referred to as Madonna and Child. Madonna and Child. Let's see, I just happen to have a number of these present here. Here's the Holy Family by Raphael. Let's see, and that must be all I have here about Raphael. And by the way, if you visit into the Pantheon, which is found in Rome, you can find the burial site there of Raphael too, along with Victor Emmanuel II, who was actually the first president of Italy. Okay, so anyway, that's kind of interesting there, folks. So we'll move right along. We're going to spend quite a bit of time with this too. Another individual, and one of my favorite individuals, is a person by the name of Michelangelo. And that's the way you want to pronounce it. If you go into Rome today and you start talking about Michelangelo, everybody will actually laugh at you. So you need to be kind of cautious with that. Michelangelo Buonarroti. All right, and giving you the years of his life there, 1475, 1564. He was another one of those Renaissance individuals here, and I'm talking about the true Renaissance man, painter, sculptor, architect, poet. He did everything. And what he's recognized for so much for is that of his painting of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And the Sistine Chapel ceiling, these are scenes that come from Genesis, and are actually paintings that come from the book of Genesis. And when he did this, he did it in 1508 to 1512. And I'll show you a second here. In fact, I think I'll just show it to you right now, what the Sistine Chapel ceiling appears as. And so now I'll have to come back to this in just a second. I'm trying to handle so many things here, folks, that it's kind of difficult with that. But this is inside the Sistine Chapel. This is where the popes are elected and chosen, if you will, by the College of Cardinals. And look at the ceiling, and here's the ceiling that is present right here. So when Michelangelo painted this, he had to paint it on a scaffold. And I'm talking about, and I'm not going to show that to you because I'll embarrass myself, but if you can imagine yourself being on a scaffold and with your head turned backwards. So your head is turned backwards and you're painting above. And really what it did, it just developed cramps in Michelangelo's neck so that when he walked, he actually walked with his head turned backwards or tilted backwards, if you understand what I'm talking about. All right, so let me try to show you here these scenes that are out of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And I was practicing this a while ago here, folks, and this is going to be very difficult for you to get a full appreciation for this. But quite an enlargement here. I'll show you here. This is what you're looking at here. And by the way, you're not allowed to take photographs there in the Sistine Chapel. This is a chapel, so you have to remain quiet inside. In fact, they have some kind of church Nazi in there that will constantly remind you. He'll say, "Silence, silencio," such as that. Sorry for the dramatics with that, but you're not permitted to take photographs, nor are you permitted, to talk in there. But if we look up at the top here, and I'm going to have to show you this one, this is a scene from Genesis, and I'm having to look at my monitor so I see where my finger's actually pointing here, folks. And this is Noah who is drunk and disgraced. If we go down to the next scene here, this is the great flood. Let's get this over here so you can see it. The next scene right here shows you Noah and his family preparing a sacrifice. The next scene that we see here, this is, if I can get it over here where you can see it anyway, this is Adam and Eve being expelled from the Garden of Eden. And if we go down to the next scene here, let me get my finger over here, this is God creating Eve. And if we go to the next one here, this is God creating Adam. And if you happen to be at St. Peter's Basilica, all the little novelty stores that are around there, everything has this scene on coffee cups, on T-shirts, everything. And that's one of the popular souvenirs that people buy. Down below this, we have God, and God is separating the earth. from the seas, from the oceans. The next scene here is God is creating the earth, the sun, and the planets. And we go down here, the next one here is God is separating light from day. So anyway, and that's kind of neat with that, that we have that. And like I said, that's right there in the Sistine Chapel ceiling itself. And I'm not through talking about the Sistine Chapel by any means. All right, let's go back to our camera here and kind of get ourselves back on track here. Okay, so Michelangelo also painted the Last Judgment. Now, he did this also in the Sistine Chapel. The Last Judgment was done in 1536. Let me see if I can show you where it is here, folks, if we look at it. Now, this is not on the ceiling, but this is on the wall. This is on the wall that is back there. The entire painting covers that entire wall. So I'm guessing that it's probably about 50 feet in height and probably 30 feet across. At least that size right there. It's a magnificent structure there. And let me see if I can find it here. I'm looking around for it, and I cannot find it here on my desk here, so I don't know what I did with that. And oh, here it is. And all right, I'll try to show it to you, such as this. Here you go. All right, tremendous in size here. You can see the extent of it. If you were in my classroom, I've got a large one, and I would have it in front of you so you can see this. All right, but let's just dissect this for a second here. And here we can see these are the dead individuals, the people that have died. And as they are descending actually into hell, that's where they're going. But you'll see here the central figure here, which is Christ. Christ the judge. Notice how the hand is raised. The hand is raised, showing you the nail holes that are present there. Down next to him, this is his mother. That's the Virgin Mary that is present there. If we go over to, let's see here, on this side, oops, wrong side. If we go on this side here, this is St. Peter, and St. Peter is presenting the keys to heaven. The keys to heaven. But the damned or the condemned here are descending down into hell. Here they are right here, going down into hell. Let's move a little bit further with this. And here are the dead here. If we go over to the other side, here are the angels. And the angels have trumpets. And these trumpets are playing. If we go a little bit further down here, if I can get my pencil in the right direction. All right, here are the condemned, the damned. They're actually being dragged into hell. Being dragged into hell by Curran and Minos, taken across the river Styx over here. And now we're going to see the resurrection, as those condemned are now going to be saved, and they're going to be resurrected and make their way on up into heaven. And this figure right here is John the Baptist. John the Baptist here, right there. If we go a little bit further up in this direction, we can see the saints here, St. Lawrence and St. Andrew, and whatever. So anyway, and that's called the Last Judgment. That's a cool thing to actually see there. Okay, so shall we move right along? Now, even though I mentioned that about Michelangelo, being a painter and a very, very talented painter, what he is really best known for is his sculptures. And they're absolutely remarkable pieces of work here. All right, now I'm going to let you look at that for a second there, and I'm thumbing through my textbook. My textbook happened to close on me, so I do not have the proper page in front of me, and I'm having to thumb through this to find what I'm looking for with you good folks. And here we go. I'm going to show you just a couple of these likenesses in your textbook here that Michelangelo did, and I'll tell you why we're trying to get this contrasted a little bit here, that Michelangelo actually believed that sculpting was the most exalted of all the arts, because this gave you an opportunity to be God. You could actually create a figure here like David, which is present here. This is descent. Oops, here's descent from the cross here, and I'll come back to this one in just a little bit, but that was not done by Michelangelo. Okay, so let me share some likenesses with you good folks here. And if you go into the academic museum, the Musea Academia, which is present in Florence, this is where you'll find the original. Now, you're probably not too impressed with this. This is called David, by the way. And wandering through the streets of Florence, you'll see this. But that is not the original. That was one that was later sculpted and not sculpted by Michelangelo. Now, when you enter into the academic museum, you find a great number of these partially carved statues. You'll have arms, legs. It'd be like a big block of marble, and have an arm that has been carved out of it, or a leg that has been carved. And that's what Michelangelo was beginning, and then just lost interest, or just decided he'd come back to it at a later time, or just never did finish it. But you find a number of those. But when you see David, I promise you, folks, you will be impressed. This statue, this carving here is 15 feet, no, it's 13 feet high. 13 feet high, but it's on a pedestal that is 15 feet. So when you look at it, you know, you're looking at like a 28-foot statue structure there, pedestal and all. It is remarkably anatomically correct, with the exception of the hands. If you look at the hands are much larger, or much out of proportion than that of the body itself. Looking to the top here, you can see that David is holding what am I trying to say, a sling, and where he is looking, he's looking at Goliath, because he has just slain Goliath, you know, with the stone that came from the sling. It is impressive here. All right, let me find a couple of other things here. Just throw this out for free. This is just a beer mat that I ran across someplace. Anyway, showing you David. I know you have no interest in that whatsoever. Hey, here's another carving, a sculpture, if you will, which is called Moses. And Moses, if you look at the head of Moses, Moses has horns. And there's an explanation for this. I think it symbolizes wisdom. All right, that's another one. Let's see what else we have here with Michelangelo. This is called Pietra. Pietra, that word actually translates to mean like passion or pity, and this is present in St. Peter's Basilica. Today, when you visit there, it has plexiglass that is in front of it. You know, we all get punished for stupid deeds that maladjusted people do. And what happened here a few years ago is somebody came in, had a bottle of white paint, and they threw the bottle, and it broke and spilled white paint all over this carving here, this sculpture here. And so consequently, you know, we all have to pay the price for that, and it has plexiglass in front of it now. And I'll show you another likeness of this in just a little bit here. And let's see here. I made a good point to show you this. If you visit in Florence and you go inside of the Basilica di Santa Croce, the cathedral at St. Croce, that's where you can find the resting place there of Michelangelo Buonarroti. It's not very far from where Machiavelli actually is buried too. And I just happened to run across a brochure for that basilica here, the Basilica of Santa Croce. All right, neat place to visit there. Okay, let's see what else I had. I want to go back to a couple of things here that are in my book, if I can find it, and just be patient with me for a second. I'm looking for, thumbing through some things here, and I'm not having much success here. Just hang with me for just a jiffy here. And again, no success with this. So I had my page marked, and my book fell over, and I lost my markings with that here. Okay, so let's move on, and if I can run across those again, I'll come back to it in just a second. All right, now another individual who is a remarkable sculptor is that of Donatello. Donatello did Gattamelata. Here's Gattamelata, which is right up here. Gattamelata. All right, does it tell you where that is? Okay, anyway, I believe that is in Rome. He also did one which is called David. And let me show you what David looks like. This is in your textbook, by the way. This is on page 403 in your textbook. Here it is right here. And if you'll notice there, and kind of dissect this a little bit, and Donatello was homosexual, by the way, but if we look at the feet of Donatello, he's standing on the head of the decapitated Goliath. Goliath had been killed, and then David killed him. And if we look a little bit further with that, you can see the sword here that the decapitation was done with, and that symbolizes a phallic symbol. We won't go much further with that. If you look at the horn here off of the head, this would be off of the helmet, if you will, of Goliath. It is sensually rubbing the inner surface of the thigh to David. Notice here the slender hips. We have the developing breast that are present there. You know something? Why don't we leave this subject here? All right. But anyway, and that's Donatello. And once again, I was trying to find some of these likenesses here. I just happened to come across this. All right, now, in a very short period here, let's see here. Okay, in fact, it's right here. We're going to move into what is called Renaissance architecture. And the best example of Renaissance architecture is that of St. Peter's Basilica. All right, so I'll show you what it looks like here. And here we can see, let me move my microphone back here. And this is St. Peter's Basilica, which is present here. And that's it right there. When you go there today, don't be surprised one bit if you see, 10,000 people that are present there. We live in hard times here, folks. In my first several visits that went to St. Peter's Basilica, there was no security. You could just walk in and out. Everything was fine. And now it's just gotten impossible to do. You'll have to stand in a line. It's about 400 yards long if it's not 600 yards long. It's just like going through an airport screening. You're waved down. You have metal detectors passed over your body, and it's honestly almost not worth your time there to go into that location. And by the way, in the background right here, this is where Sistine Chapel is located. Sistine Chapel, it is this structure, which is right there. Okay. In fact, there's a connection between the Sistine Chapel and I went over to St. Peter's Basilica. Now, where the Pope's residence is right here. Here's where the papal apartment is located. All right, I want to share a couple of photographs with you. I'm going in the right direction here. Apparently, I'm not going in the right direction. All right, this shows you the interior of St. Peter's Basilica. Okay, and all very, very beautiful here, folks. All right, this is a separate country, by the way. You're in Vatican City, so you're in the Vatican. It's a separate country. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you at an earlier time, but it is a walled city. It is guarded by Swiss guards. And if you're in pretty good physical condition, you can walk the 3-mile circumference around this city. And that's kind of cool. And that's really, you can just, brag to your neighbors. You can say, hey, I ran around the country, all the way around the country. And you can do that if you wish to do so. All right. Also, you'll find here in St. Peter's Basilica, this big statue, and I mean it's a large statue, much larger than life size here, which is a St. Peter. It's right next to where the holy water is present, so if you wish to sprinkle yourself with some holy water, you can do so. Look at the toe, which is here. See the polished, shiny surface here to the toe? And that's what people do is they're lined up to go into St. Peter's Basilica. Everybody takes their thumb, and you rub your thumb across the toe right there. And supposedly it brings you good luck and that God will smile favorably upon you. So when you look at the toe, the statue, the sculpture there is solid black, but when you look at the toe, it's all shiny. It's all like silver shiny because of so many people that have rubbed their thumbs across it here. Here's another likeness here, if I can show you here, Pietra. Get it properly positioned here. Beautiful, beautiful sculpture there by Michelangelo. Okay, so where do we get to here, folks? So that's Renaissance architecture, and some of the best known of the architects at that time in helping to construct St. Peter's Basilica, which was done so in the Renaissance period, by the way. Bernini, some of you might be familiar with Bernini. A number of his statues are present throughout churches, cathedrals present in Rome itself. For those of you that have read the book Angels and Demons, Bernini had an instrumental part in that, with his sculptures there. Michelangelo, of course, was a very well talented architect. And also we have Bramante. Donato Bramante. Okay, moving on here, folks. We're eventually going to see a decline in the Italian Renaissance, and this is going to take place around the end of the 1490s anyway. And it's done so by several reasons here. And number one, positioning right here, France invaded Italy. And France invaded Italy in 1494 it was. And they would remain there for about 5 years. And finally, with the assistance of Spain, the French were forced out. But they returned again in 1499. And when they came back in 1499, they remained there for the next 30 years. All right. And so that it was just one of the factors why we see a decline in the Roman decline in Renaissance in Italy. But there are other factors involved in this too. This is the beginning of the Catholic Reformation. It is also the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. And with this, the Catholic Church is going to lash back, and they lash back very strongly. They do not take this Protestant Reformation lightly here. And what they made attempt to do, the Catholic Church, they're going to control the mind of people. They control the philosophy, the thoughts of individuals. Often you take the position here that a thinking man is a friend of Satan's. So you really don't want the people to think. You want them to listen to the priests, listen to the bishops, and don't question anything. And this is where the Catholic Church first came out with its first of many editions of the Index of Prohibited Books. And these are books that you, as a Christian, are prohibited from reading. The Catholic Church will not allow you to do this. And I'm going to give you a handful of these individuals. I'm just going to dictate these to you folks. And perhaps you're familiar with some of these individuals, but Peter Abelard, you're prohibited from reading his books. Erasmus, a person we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. Galileo, you're prohibited from reading his writings. Machiavelli, John Calvin, which we'll talk about in two lectures, our last lecture, as a matter of fact. John Milton, you probably are familiar with him. And we have a Condorcet, which we'll mention next semester. Daniel Defoe, Jonathan Swift, Rabelais, Montaigne, Descartes, Pascal, Montesquieu, Voltaire, one of my favorite individuals. We'll talk about him next semester. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Denis Diderot, Gustave Flaubert, Victor Hugo, Alexandre Dumas, Émile Zola. These are all popular people, but the Catholic Church will not allow you to read their writings here. It was also during this period of time where the Pope Paul IV, ordered that the nude paintings of Michelangelo be painted over. And so a second-rate artist was commissioned by the Pope to go in and paint clothing over those naked figures. All right, what a mess that was to clean up in later years. It was also during this period of time that the Pope ordered that all the masculine statues that were present in the Sistine Chapel, and it's a big museum, by the way, that attaches to that all those statues be emasculated. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, that means that we're going to take a cold chisel and we're going to, how can I put this nicely, and we're going to literally hammer off the private parts of those male statues. Somewhere in the Sistine Chapel today, there has to be a huge box of private male parts. All right, and shall we move right along here? It was during this time that Galileo, who had made the statement here that it was the earth and the planets that orbit the sun, and the Catholic Church rebelled against this, and Galileo was tried for heresy, and Galileo had to prostrate himself in front of Catholic officials and recant his statement there. And upon his making that statement and lifting himself to his feet, he muttered under his breath, "Il peut se mouve," but it really does move. Okay, and on we go here, folks. And now we're going to see the Renaissance is going to move to the north. And where I'm talking about primarily is that in the areas of Germany. Now, for this Renaissance movement, it's not going to be as secular as what we found in Rome. We're going to find a lot more religion to be present here in this Northern Renaissance. All right, so we're going to refer to this rather than civic humanism. We're going to refer to it as Christian humanism. Okay, so with Christian humanism, it's going to be different from that of civic humanism. Civic humanism gained wisdom from reading the classics, the Greek classics, the Roman classics. And for Christian humanists, they draw wisdom from the New Testament. All right, so one of the individuals associated with this, work on your pronunciation with this. One of my favorite individuals, by the way, is Erasmus. Erasmus. If you're following in your textbook, you'll see a painting there of Erasmus by Hans Holbein the Younger. He is a prince of the Christian humanists, and that's the way you'll see it on your examination. I'm going to ask you to identify who is the prince of the Christian humanists, and I hope you'll tell me it's Desiderius Erasmus, Dr. Desiderius Erasmus, by the way. All right, the prince of the Christian humanists. He believed that the entire society of his day was corrupt. He offered satires to show people the error of their ways. He provided moral guidance toward proper Christian behavior, and he wrote scholarly editions of textbooks, such as the Praise of Folly and the Handbook of the Christian Knights. Now, he also considered redoing of Lorenzo Valley's notes on the New Testament, so he produced his own Erasmus Greek New Testaments with explanatory notes. It will be Desiderius Erasmus who will lay the egg that will soon hatch into the Protestant Reformation. Okay, another individual, Sir Thomas More. Sir Thomas More, a lawyer and a speaker of the House of Commons in Parliament. And he had been at one time the Chancellor of England. He wrote this piece, which was called Utopia. I don't think that I wrote that for you. Utopia, which described a near-perfect world across the ocean that had been discovered by Amerigo Vespucci. But Sir Thomas More became crossed up with Henry VIII. Henry VIII is the English king at that time. During our last lecture, I think it's the last lecture, we'll talk much more about Henry VIII, an interesting individual here. He is a tutor, by the way, the son of Henry VII that we talked about at an earlier time. But Henry VIII will declare himself as the official head of the Anglican Church, and Sir Thomas More was not appreciative of that and disagreed with him. So Henry had Sir Thomas More taken to the Tower of London. And my friends, when you go to the Tower of London, you don't check out. And sure enough, that's what's going to happen to Sir Thomas More, is that he will go to the gallows to be hanged here. And his final words, the king's good servant, but God's first. So Sir Thomas More becomes Sir Thomas No More. All right, on we go here, folks. And another one of the Christian humanists, and by the way, with Sir Thomas More, you see a likeness of him, a portrait of him by Hans Holbein Younger, which is in your textbook. And the last of these Christian humanists I wish to mention here is a person by the name of Ulrich von Hutten, a German, Letters of Obscure Men, in which he encouraged the German people to practice a little xenophobia. Stay away from foreigners. Don't trust foreigners. All right, now, the art that we're going to have in the Northern Renaissance is not quite as accomplished as that in the Italian Renaissance. You do have a couple of very interesting painters to come out of this period. The person I mentioned to you a few minutes ago was called Hans Holbein. Holbein the Younger. You can look at a number of his paintings right in the pages that I've been going through just a few minutes ago here. Somewhere around 403, a little bit beyond page 403. And I like him. I think he's a remarkable artist. But the one that I like so very much is Albrecht Dürer. Now, Albrecht Dürer is a German. He lived in a town which is called Nuremberg. Nuremberg, Germany is a beautiful town, by the way. And he did a number of paintings here. If I can find these, let me look around here, see what I can come up with. And here we go. Some of the paintings here that you see here. The Four Apostles. We have St. Jerome in his study, which is present here. Let's see here. Here's a self-portrait here, if I can get the lighting right here. Self-portrait here, present there. And we also have Night, Death, and Devil, which is this one, which is present right there. If you get a chance to go to Nuremberg, and I hope that you do, be sure and take the time to go by the home there of Albrecht Dürer. There is a charge to go through the entire home. You can walk through the downstairs door right there into the little visitor center, which is part of the home. And so you can do that for free. But if you're going to tour the entire house, you're going to have to buy a ticket there for that too. And I want to show you something else here, and I like this very much. And it was in a painting which was called Melancholia 1, and this is also done by Albrecht Dürer. And if you look over to the corner right here, he has included in that a magic square. All right, so I want to spend a few seconds here showing you the magic square. And if you were in my class right now, I would pass it, give one of these to each one of you. And when you look at Albrecht Dürer's magic square, I don't think you'll be one bit impressed with this when you first look at it. But what I want you folks to do here, I want you to add this number and this number and this number and this number and see what you come up with. Add those numbers and see what you come up with. And I think you'll find that will come up to 34. And what I want you to do is add this column of numbers right here. And when you do so, that is 34. And when you add this column here, what do you come up with? And you'll find that is 34. If you do this, what do you come up with? And that is 34. If you do these numbers here and add those, you'll get 34. Now what I want you to do is add these 4 numbers here, and you'll get 34. Add these 4 numbers, 34. Add these 4 numbers, 34. Add these 4 numbers, 34. And when this was done, it was in 1514. Add these 4 numbers here, 34. Add these numbers diagonally, 34. These numbers diagonally, 34. And that's what we refer to as the magic square. So you can see it right here, the magic square. And I like that. That is remarkable. And I'm a person that loves puzzles very, very much here, folks. Okay, so let's move on for just a couple of minutes here. And I'm going to actually move into the Protestant Reformation for just a few minutes here before we close out for today. And I'm looking around for a photograph here. The Protestant Reformation will begin in 1517. It begins because of one person, and that one person is Martin Luther. Here's what Martin Luther looks like here. He's a fat German who loves beer. He's a fat little German who loves beer. And I have a couple of more comments to make about that as we go through the life of Martin Luther the next time we get together. He's a remarkable individual, and he's one of those individuals that I kind of hero worship with Martin Luther. But why did Martin Luther start this Protestant Reformation? And I'm going to tell you, in use of the words Protestant Reformation, this is not a reformation at all. This is an all-out attack and war on the Catholic Church. And the remarkable thing about Martin Luther, he's one of the most pious, one of the most devout individuals that you will ever read about here. He was a Christian, he was a Catholic, he was an Augustinian monk, but he was disgusted with just some of the basic practices of the Holy Roman Catholic Church. And such things I'm talking about here: superstitions, fraud, corruption, the offering of salvation for money. Within the Catholic Church at this time, everything was money. Everything centered around raising money for the church. And I think I'll wait here before I go into this section here on the curative power of saints and holy relics. That's a topic in itself here, folks, and I believe we've got enough time to work all that into our next 2 lecture periods anyway. So I think for the time being here, we'll stop and kind of rest on that for a little bit. And when we come back with our next lecture, the entire lecture will be devoted, or almost the entire lecture will be devoted to the Protestant Reformation and that of Martin Luther. All right, stay up with your material here, folks. A lot of material mounting up on you here. Thank you very much for your attention.